Welcome to the Legacy and Light podcast, where we are creating a culture of community by sharing stories of what God has done. I'm Allie Maddox, your host for today's episode, and we have a really special guest today, a great friend of mine. We have Olivia. Hey. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. I'm excited. Okay, tell us a little bit about you, and where would people in the church most likely find you around church?
Yeah, so I am the social media specialist here at Southcrest. So basically, I run the Southcrest Instagram, as well as other ministries at the college, at the Journey, and literally all around. And so you'll probably find me here on Sunday mornings and throughout the week. I also take photos for everything. So I'm sure a lot of y'all have seen me in the venue, the worship center, my camera. That's me. Just seeing all the fun events. And so, I'm really happy to be here. And I love our team, the comms team, and social media, photos, all the things.
It's so funny that you're like, you'll see me. I'm like, I never see you. I feel like you're so stealthy.
I stand out. I'm like, there's no way I can hide it more. Like, I'll try a black shirt. I'm like, no, I'm just there. Just a little curly head.
I think you do a great job. Because sometimes I'll like get done with like worship and come back and be like, oh, Olivia's here. I haven't seen her all day.
Yay. Okay, that's really affirming to hear.
Yeah, you're very stealthy.
Thank you.
Well, let's just dive in. Tell us about, early childhood, maybe life right before coming to know Christ. Were you raised in a Christian home or not raised in a Christian home?
Yes. So I was raised in a Christian home, and my parents were like, hey, you're going to church. And so I did all of like Awana, VBS, church camps, etc. My parents were the type where whenever I was younger, if I was spending the night at someone's house on a Saturday, they're like, okay, well, you're coming to church on Sunday, right? And I was like, can I just like hang out? And I was like, that's crazy. So raised in a Christian home. I'm an older brother and then my parents, and I got baptized when I was 8. And before then, there's a lot of stuff with my brother going on. And so part of me assumed that like, if I got baptized, like this will go away, which I hate to say that now, but it's true. And then another part of me, like just going to all those camps and like Awana VBS, like I was like, oh, like God is awesome. Like I feel peace at him when I'm in this community or when I'm with him. And I was like, I want that. And so my parents walked me through the Bible. They really wanted me to know, like, why do you believe? Not just like, here's what the church says, so then like here's the thing you do. And it's like, no, they want me to have a backup reason, like be honest, like why do you stand for Christ? And so I was only 8, but I was like, yeah, like God's awesome, like he's great. And so I was like, I want to do this. Like if I were to pass tomorrow, like I want to be sure like I'm coming home to God. And so got baptized in.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Were you here in Lubbock at that time?
Yeah, so I was going to church at Indiana Avenue.
Okay.
That was our growing up church. And just got baptized here. And then in high school, my husband, but like my boyfriend at the time, he started going here. And so I just went here. And now I'm here.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's so cool of your parents to walk through that with you and kind of like make sure that it's your own and not just, because I know with like, and I right, in all the interviews that we've done of like people like understand like little kids get so much more than we give them credit for. Like they truly do understand so much more. But making sure that it's your own faith in that time and not just kind of like going with the flow of what a lot of kids around that age are doing.
Yeah.
So that was really cool with them to do that with you. That's so cool. So after 8, so y'all, let's see, in high school, you started coming to Southcrest here.
Yes.
Were there any things like through that high school experience that you want to talk about, or was it kind of just a fairly normal high school teenager upbringing?
So I came to Southcrest towards the end of my 8th grade year, and I remember like I did not want to go, and there's again things with my brother where I was just kind of confused, I guess, in my faith, even though I was still young. And that always sounds bad. Like I don't want to go to like a Christian school. All my friends are going to like this public school, so I was like, why can't I go?
So y'all were going from public school to a Christian private school?
Yes. Well, I went to Stockton, so that was kind of
okay,
private in a way.
Yeah.
But then like a lot of my friends were in a little bit high, Hutch and stuff like that, and I was like, Yeah. So I was like, I want to go there. And my parents were like, hey, no, like, let's go here.
Okay.
So I went here and it was good. And like, I learned to like just walk with my faith in a Christian setting. And I remember like towards maybe like sophomore, junior year, like I felt like I was in a bubble. And I like to be pushed in my faith of like, hey, like, this is why you're doing this. Like, when you get to the real world, like, experience, it's like, how can I defend my faith? And so they did touch on that, like, here's how you defend your faith. But then I just felt like I wasn't doing that. And so I was getting really stuck and frustrated with myself of like, God, I don't know what to do. Like, I feel very lukewarm in my faith with you. I don't know. I feel like will never have like a deep life-changing story like a lot of people had. And then I had just things going on again with my brother and then just my adoption that all those at once, and then just high school feelings where I was like, I'm so overwhelmed, and I felt a lot of like just loneliness, and especially with the adoption. Like, it was something that my parents had told me at an early age, like, hey, you're adopted. I don't remember them sitting me down and telling me that, which I'm grateful for now. And they had told me a long time, like, hey, the door's always open if you want to talk about that. But they're like, but just know, like, we don't have information on your birth family, so it's kind of hard. But just remind me, like, we're not, like, blood related, but, like, we took care of you, like, grew you up and stuff like that. So I think high school was just an area of trying to manage that, like, as those feelings got deeper and I got more of an understanding. Yeah, it was just hard.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the adoption?
I was born in Russia, and at an early age, my parents here adopted me out, and so I spent my first birthday here in Lubbock, so I'm like, I pretty much grew up. We don't need to go through all that. But it is a big part, and I'd always ask my parents, like, hey, why did you choose, like, Russia to adopt? And originally they told me, like, they got married a little bit later, and unfortunately weren't able to have kids. And my mom said that they looked here in the U.S. for adoptions. It was very expensive, which I would only assume, like, was international. But anyways. And didn't have luck here. And then a group of their friends, like, went to Russia, adopted a little boy there. And so that kind of influenced them to go look. Actually, hold on. They started in China, and there's a whole spill over there. And then they came to Russia, and they first adopted my brother, which were not blood related. They got him. The orphanage was in Vladivostok, and so they brought him home. And then my mom was like, I want a little girl. And so a few years later, they came back over and adopted me. And so it's kind of fun to, like, share with my brother that we're both adopted. And yeah, so my parents again told me at an early age, like, hey, you're adopted. Again, like, this doesn't make us love you any less. Like, we still love you. Your birth family loves you. Like, they did this because of that. And so, like, growing up, I was like, yeah, like, I believe that. It's fine. And then, like, it was times where I wanted to share it with my older brother, like, hey, how do you feel about this? What are your takes on it? And he was like, well, I don't have any interest in finding my family. Like, it's fine. And he was out doing his stuff. So I was like, okay. And then my friends, like, still to this day, I can't count more than 5, like 2 for sure, that are adopted. And, like, they'll share things like, yeah, my family lives in Florida or California. I haven't. Yeah, I'm like, well, that's nice. And they're like, yeah, I have a relationship with them, but, like, it's not that great. And again, going into high school, that period where I almost felt guilty sharing that with my family, but, like, it's like I didn't want them to think, like, oh, I love them any less, or, like, I don't want them to be sad that I'm wanting to know more. And I brought it up with them a few times of, like, hey, can you tell me more about my family? And my mom was very, like, supportive, and I think, like, my dad was pretty reserved and quiet, and so that was when I was like, oh, well, I'll just stop sharing about it. And it was a close adoption, and so it was surprising that, like, we still had information on them. Like, there's a big yellow folder stacked of papers that that I still think is a God thing that, like, that we had those reports, even though it was a close adoption.
Yeah.
And so I just remember going through high school, like, looking through those reports, like, just asking God, like, please, can I meet my birth family? And I always imagine, like, sitting in classroom, they call my name, like, Olivia, your birth family's here. And I'm like, oh, first of all, that's not realistic, right? I'm like, I didn't even matter. Also, like, growing up, people, it started in 5th grade, where, like, we had our family tree history.
Yeah.
And that was the first time in 5th grade that I was kind of like, oh, wait, I actually don't know. And I would ask my family, and they're like, oh, well, your aunt, like, talking about their family.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I kind of went along with it, and I was like, yeah, like, I get that. But then deep down, I'm like, no, but, like, what's, like, my blood-related family? And that obviously just escalated into high school, middle school. Actually, middle school, a lot of people were not nice. It was that whole thing of, like, you're adopted. And I'm like, actually, I am. But I was like, okay, well, yeah. They're just so dumb. And it made me feel so bad. And, like, I look at younger me, and I'm like, oh. Like, it makes me just want to hug her. And I'm like, that didn't make you any less of a person.
Yeah.
Like, you're still loved. And then going to high school, like, those feelings just got deeper. And I was like, God, I don't get, it's been 19 years. I haven't heard anything from them. My mom would encourage me to, like, write a letter to them, which, like, I always started with them. Like, how do you, like, fill up 19 years of your life on a paper to them? And I was like, I don't know. And I remember one time I got a little, like, farther into it, but it's still, like, I don't know. And I don't know if this would even reach my birth parents. So I was like, well, there's a chance, like, they could have passed. Trying to give me a lot of scenarios, and I was like, oh, I don't want to hear that. But I was like, okay. And then, again, it was like I didn't have anyone to share that with. Because a lot of the people I went to high school with are, like, none of them were adopted.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I think maybe one. And I felt so alone. And I remember so many nights, like, just crying myself to sleep. I couldn't share it with my parents. I would wake up the next morning, like, okay, I'm fine. Like, I didn't want people to look down just because I had been, not bullied, but just looked so down on for being adopted. And so I was always like, okay, I'll just cry about it, get in my feels, and next day just to wake up, I'm like, okay, I'm fine.
Try to move on.
Yeah, which obviously is not healthy, and we're still working through that. And I was like, God, I don't understand your plan in this. Like, this is such a big thing for me. And I was like, I want to know them. I remember one time I was telling my husband, I was like, hey, I'm just going to share my adoption stuff with you. This will be the last time. I'm like, okay, it's going on for 23 years now. I don't know anything about them. I try to look into it. Like, I don't understand the Russian stuff. And I was kind of like,
y'all were married before y'all had, like, the conversation about it all?
Sorry. Yes, we were married. It was 2024. And I believe it was, like, earlier that month, or in the year, January. And I was kind of like, okay, here are my Russian papers, because we had just talked about it. And I would make a lot of bad jokes to kind of comfort myself. I was like, oh, they just don't care. Like, they just shipped me off after I was born. And yeah, it was just terrible stuff. And so Jonathan was like, well, hey, like, let me look into it. And I was like, okay. I was like, well, you're not going to find anything because I've been praying about it for 23 years, so go ahead. And it's so crazy. And so I showed him the big yellow sack of papers, and I was like, here it is. And then little did I know, it was back last April that he had reached out to some people to try and find my birth family. And it's such a cool story, but he, like, was looking online to just, you know, try to find somebody, and it sounds sketchy, but he talked to someone on Reddit, and he was like, hey, my wife's trying to find her birth family. Do you know anything? And so he was like, well, yeah, well, just send me your stuff. And so he sent some of, like, where I was born, all their information to this guy. And I didn't know it. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're sending a stranger, like, it's Russian information. I'm like, they're going to come after me. I'm done. But I was like, Jonathan, we have a whole Russian army after us. And so the guy, like, sent us back, and he was like, actually, yeah, I found them. Here's a whole report on them. And so Jonathan asked me, like, hey, this guy on Reddit, like, has your family history. Like, here's all this active stuff. And I was like, Jonathan, again, I was like, hey, privacy. Hello? And it was cool because all of it didn't line up, like their name, birth date, where they live. And I was like, It's like, God, wait, is this a step? And I remember, like, right before that, I was like, okay, God, I had to remember that my identity is not in finding my birth family. Like, it does not come from them as much as I place it in them. Like, once I find them, like, I'll be good. Like, things will go back to, like, flowing well.
Kind of like a symmetry to the baptism. Like, once you get baptized, everything will be fine.
Yes. I thought that for the longest time. And I think God was just showing me, like, hey, no. So anyways, he found the papers, and then he reached out to another guy. His name's Alex, and I can't remember his last name, but he's a Russian YouTuber, and I know, he started a non-profit organization for adoptees in Russia. He was also born there, got adopted out into New Zealand. It's like a whole New Zealand accent. I was like, oh, that's so cool. And so he just, wanted to help people find their birth family. And so Jonathan reached out to Alex, and then Alex was like, well, hey, I had to know, like, your wife has to give me the information. And so I told him a little bit of our background, gave him all the papers I had. And then this is still in April. And I was kind of like, okay, God, like, please show me, like, your hand in this situation. Like, I feel really hopeful, but this is such a deep spot in me that I was like, if this doesn't work out, then I don't want to be heartbroken again. And it's like, I don't know how to move on from this. And so it was a few weeks would go by. I would check my email. I wouldn't hear from him. And then every now and then he's like, yeah, I'm still, like, checking on updates. And on April 24th, I remember I was coming home from work. I hadn't checked my email for a while. Just because, again, it was like, hey, I'm not finding anything. And then he's like, I found your aunt. And I was like, what? And I still to this day, like, that joy I felt, I was like, I haven't felt that in a long time. Like, since younger me. And I was like, God answered my prayer. Like, it took 23 years, but I was like, he answered my prayer. And I was like, oh my gosh. And he was like, yeah, she wants to meet you. Like, she wants to talk to you. It's up to you. Like, you can take that step. And I was just crying, and I was praising God, and I was like, God, you did it. And like, looking back, and I was like, your timeline was perfect. And that's such a thing where I was like, I'm so glad it was in his time. So, like, if it was back in high school, I think just my maturity then, like, I don't know if I would handled it well. And so, yeah, I called my aunt, and I got to FaceTime her, and I got to see her, and she called me I don't want to share my name, but my Russian name, but she just called me by my nickname there and was so happy. And I was like, oh, and that was so special. And then she's like, hey, like, your dad wants to talk to you. And I was like, my birth dad? I was like, what? And so a few days would go by, and then finally, like, oh, also we found a Russian translator at Tech, because I was like, well, obviously I need someone to help me translate, because I'm not fluent. I only know 2 words in Russia. And so I reached out to Tech, and I was like, hey, do you have a translator? Like, someone could help me. Here's my situation. And it didn't take long. We found a girl who's also born in Russia. And she's like, yeah, I would love to. Aww. And so she came to our house, and we just talked about, like, Russian culture, things like that. And, yeah, we finally set up a meeting with my dad, and I got to, like, a FaceTime, I got to see him, like, for the first time. And I was like, oh my gosh. And yeah, he called me by my Russian name, and I was like, okay. And I was trying not to cry, and I was like, first impression, but I was like, wait, this is so cool. And so we talked for a long time, and I had all these questions, but in the moment, I was just like, yeah, this is crazy. Like, I'm talking to my birth dad. Like, I never thought I would have this. Like, I was pretty much giving up on the hope of ever finding them. And, like, just being so beaten down by hearing other adoptees, like, yeah, I found them. But whatever. Like, mine's across the world. And I was like, I don't get it. And I would tell God, I was so angry. I was like, why was I even adopted if this isn't going to happen? Like, why did I not have been born from my parents here? Like, what was the point? And I never wanted to be angry with God. It just felt so wrong. But then I was like, well, I'm growing. again, going back to, like, just wondering, like, what's the point? And he, like, before this podcast, like, whenever I got y'all's email about it, I was like, wait. I was like, God, this is really cool. I think, like, sharing this, like, my story now, I'm like, maybe that's why. Maybe even if it's just, like, a little dot in his story, or, like, his plan for this, I was like, maybe this is why. Like, all of this happened that I can relate, hopefully, to other adoptees. And just get my story out there. And also, like, I met a few, like, in high school, we would talk to, like, the freshmen, and there would be a few adoptees there that, without knowing it, like, I would just help them through it. Like, hey, I am adopted. I can help you through it. Yeah, I thought that was so cool. But I kept thinking of Romans 8:28, and I was like, hey, it's going to work out for his good one way or another. Like, God's got me. And however this plays out. But yeah, I talked to my dad. I got to learn more about my birth family. Unfortunately, my birth mom was not in the picture. And I was longing to, like, see her. And, like, well, I have my whole family. I found out I knew I had an older brother, but I found out I had 2 other siblings, a younger brother and sister. And yeah, it was just so cool just to see God's hand in all of it. Unfortunately, now, like, I hadn't heard from them in over a year. So I'm trying to think back again. I'm like, okay, my identity's not in them. This is really cool. It all happened in April last year, and now I've just dropped. Okay, God, like, what's going on? Just, again, remind myself that this is hard, but, like, God's been faithful, and he was working at the behind the scenes of all of it. And really just something like, Olivia, like, I have a plan for you. Like, again, you are my daughter. Like, I'm calling you by name, that you are mine.
I think you're so right that the amount of loneliness that you felt in junior high or middle school and high school, and what, even if anybody listening now could reach out or something, you know, if they're feeling those feelings and kind of like nervous to talk to their parents about it or whatever, that there are people that will understand a little bit, right? It's the whole sympathy versus empathy thing of, like, if you haven't walked it, sometimes it's hard to open up to someone, you know?
Yeah.
But, so I think that's really awesome that you've taken this and what God has kind of, like, shown you over the last however many years of, like, you're right, like, you're his, and your circumstances do not own you.
Yeah.
You know, so you being able to help other people walk through that, I think, is really cool. Or just that you're willing to do that at all, you know?
Yeah.
Just open up your story for that. So I think that's really awesome. There was a time in the last, like, 2 years or so that I feel like, just if we're okay to talk about this, there were, like, kind of like, it felt like life was kind of kicking you down, one thing after another. And it was, like, kind of right after the being able to see your family that they weren't responding anymore, and then some other things just kind of happened in your life. How was your faith, like, kind of walking through, okay, God has been, like, kind of like this miracle thing happened, but then, like, immediately after that it was like like these, like, kind of series of events that you're like, wait.
Yeah, I mean, it felt like a roller coaster. Like, I was up here, and then all of a sudden, like, literally life was just like, surprise. Like, my faith was not good, and I felt guilty because I was like, okay, God just answered my biggest prayer. But then a lot of these things are happening that I'm like, wait, I don't get it. Like, we were just like this last month, and now we're here. A little bit after finding my birth family, and then things with my brother were getting bad again. And there's just been stuff, like, growing up that has been really hard to walk through. To give, like, a long story short, he was just very angry growing up, and my parents didn't want it to get out to other people. So it'd be a lot of times of, like, hey, Olivia, like, just go to your room. Like, we have this figured out. It's fine. And I just remember, like, going to my room, and I was so scared. I'm like, I want to be there helping my parents. Like, this is so scary. And that was just, like, a repetitive thing that they did. Like, hey, this doesn't need to go out. Like, let's not share with anybody. So it's, like, even more things to just keep to myself. And a lot of this happened at an early age, to where, like, I would have a really traumatic night with that whole situation, go to work or go to school the next day, put a smile on my face. I'm like, well, no one, like, I'm fine. Like, yeah, our home life is really great. And again, like, that has stuck with me still to this day, where, like, I don't want people to know the things that happen. I just want people to see me as like a bubbly, happy person. And it's one of those like where I'm thankful for my husband, like where I can open up to him about these struggles. But yeah, again, it makes it really lonely. And so things with my brother had picked up again, and he, like, it's just a big part that, like, I remember going to work and we had a fun, like, we would just have a great day. Everyone's having a good day. And, like, some of those weeks, I was like, I literally cannot get this out of my head. Like, I can't smile it through. And I'm just being very angry with God. I'm like, God, again, this is something I've also prayed for a long time. I thought he was doing good. We're going back to this cycle. And I was like, God, like, I don't get it. We've all prayed. Like, I know that you're going to work this through, but, like, why is this still happening? It's affecting all of us way too much. Like, my parents don't deserve this. I don't deserve this. Just very angry with God. So then I stopped going to church. Or if we did go, I would just be, but, like, I was in emotions. Or I feel like I was just sitting there, like, in just, like, blocked noise. And I was like, I'm not, like, nothing is connecting with me. And I felt guilty of that. And, like, some of that is still present. And I think just it took some boundaries with my brother. Like, hey, like, I can't have that in my life anymore. Telling my parents, like, because they would ask me, even, like, growing up, like, okay, Olivia, like, what do we do? And I was like, I'm just a child. I was like, I don't know. And I feel like that's made me very reserved and just kind of questioning my faith of, like, am I worthy of this? I don't understand why this happened. Like, why is this my life? Like, why is this stuff happening? Again, just setting boundaries with my brother and my family. And, like, I don't remember the exact time period, but it was just kind of like, okay, like, here's everything that I have, God. Like, here's all this pain, this suffering. I'm so upset with you. I had to trust, and I know that your plan is way bigger and that you're seeing all of this through, and, like, just kind of surrendering it to him. And actually, I think whenever my grandma passed, like, seeing how deep her faith was with God, and I just remember, like, she went through a lot too, but also seeing her at the other side of, like, hey, like, God's got it. It's fine. Like, we knew that coming into this world, it was going to be tough. Like, it's not going to be easy, but we have to put our faith and trust in God, and it'll be good. And so I think that was kind of like a switch to, like, just life is short. And I was like, I don't want to be angry. Again, it was always going back to, if I were to pass tomorrow or whatever, I was like, I want to make sure, like, I know where I'm going and not to hold any grudges. And so that's when I started, like, really diving deep more into, like, the sermons. We went to Watermark, and that was really fun. And, like, just being that present, I was like, I haven't felt this, like, deep longing or connection since I've been to, like, church camps. Like, there's some times, yes, at church, but I think, being surrounded and that big of with leaders and just other believers, I'm like, okay, like, here's all my, like, problems, my insecurities, everything. Like, I'm laying that all to you, God, and I have to trust at the end of the day that you're going to take care of it. So I'm going to stop trying to control it, letting it get to me, and whatever, like, have it your way, God. And so, yeah, I think that really helped, like, me go up again and, like, okay, these things are going to happen, but I know that God's good and he's got me, and that the enemy is not going to win on this one. So,
So it feels like maybe kind of a theme for this is not that everyone needs to go on a podcast and talk about all the things that are going on, but the comparison of having to struggle alone versus having close community around you that you can discuss things with.
yes.
I'm hoping that the close community has been helpful to you.
Yes. I had to shout out Faith behind the camera. I remember, like, at TNG one night, the journey, I was asking Faith about, like, home groups. So I was like, why don't we get plugged in? And, like, I want to go more than just a Sunday. Like, I want to, like, pour into my spiritual life throughout the week. And, yeah, Faith had talked to me about it. Like, yeah, I actually have a home group with David and Allie. And I was like, I want to be part of that. And so I remember, like, David was right there. And I was like, okay, well, it's now or never. And so I just asked him. I was like, hey, can you tell me more about your home group? And then I got invited to y'all's area, and that has been truly so life-giving. And so thank you.
When you said yes, you didn't know what the home group was actually going to be
No, I was just like,
turning
sure.
into. So
Yeah.
if you don't know, the home group that we have, there's like a few that are happening at South Crest that are this way, that it's confession based. And Olivia said, yes, she would like to be a part of it. And then the first day that she shows up, we're like, hey, actually, we're going to start implementing this very deep, raw, very seen thing. Would you like to be a part of it? The very first day. And they said yes, and they stayed. Anyway, I just thought that was really cool to just like first day in, you're like, yes, I want to be known. I want to talk about the things that I'm going through and have a community that actually knows me.
Yeah.
And I think that's so cool and brave of y'all. Because I don't think you knew any of us other than Faith and Tyson. So really cool stuff there. And I'm really glad that it's been helpful to you. But just, yes, like, you don't have to struggle alone. And that's hard as a teenager, right? Because like, who's telling you that?
Yeah.
Who's coming up to, but I think that's why it's mentorship is so important. And just having like, because right, if you had somebody back then that was holding your hand through those things, like how, I don't know, not that it would have hurt less, but it could have been more bearable, if that makes sense. And so I do hope that for like future generations that we can continue pouring into people that need someone to talk to and like remind them who they are in Christ. And so it's really cool that you can look back now, even at an early age now, of seeing what God has done in this whole thing. Even though recognizing it's still like you're still struggling now, right? And it's just life, like things continue to happen. And so I'm really proud of you and what you've been doing these last couple of years, right, being motivated after going to CLC and like listening to sermons and trying to like, okay, God has given me resources and I'm going to use them while these things are happening, because they're going to continue to happen, right? There's not the baptism will end the suffering type thing, but we all feel that way sometimes, right? It's like, if I could just get to this point in my life, things would be chill. And it's just like, it just doesn't work that way. Is there anything else that you would like to say just about like what God has done? And if not, then what would be your main piece of advice for people that are maybe struggling with some of the things that you've had to struggle with throughout your life?
So like you said, I'm still working through those, and a lot of it is just like childhood trauma. And like now that I have you have good community and home groups, like, okay, I'm starting to like reveal those and like heal that part of me. And I think a lot of that was just like finding community and like kind of like doing it scared.
I like that.
That's from Lindsay. Yeah, I think like just growing, I was so shy. Again, it was like, don't tell people what's happening. Like, that was supposed to be between us, and then going to like next day, like, put a smile on your face, and it's like, no. And again, it's like, I wish I could hug my younger me, and I'm like look at her, and it's like, I imagine like I'm gonna start crying. I just imagine that if I have a daughter one day, like, I don't want her to go through those things that I did. So I'm trying to like fix it for her, and it's like just remembering that, like, hey, God's got you from the start. Like, again, he knew you before you were in your mother's womb. He loves you, and this world's gonna try and tear you down. But again, it's like, hey, like, I'm here. You have so many believers around you that like want to see you, want to help you up. And I think that's a key thing, is like surrounding myself with believers. Because like I think we've all seen like the difference between believer community and like not hesitating, not thinking about it too much, like just going after it and continually to reading God's word. Because again, like, that feeds our soul. Like, I want to know clearly like what's from God versus what's not. I get we don't always get like that clarity. But again, at the end of the day, just knowing, God's there. For people that have in my shoes, or maybe like adopted parents, I think another thing is like going back to like adoption for a lot of them. Yes, like, it's like we're grateful. Like, we had this life. I don't know if I was still in Russia, if I would have known who God is. Like, I seen my family, I'm like, oh, they seem great, but, like, I actually don't know if they have a connection with God. And, it's like, yeah, like, support them, but also it's like, that was, like, it's, I look back, I'm like, okay, I have 24 years of not knowing anything with my family, like, and it's a lot of grief to go through. Like, a side note, like, we've gone to Italy and Spain before, and obviously, like, the culture there is different, but then I look at the young families there, I'm like, I wonder, like, would my life have been similar to that in Russia? Again, it goes back to that state where, like, I get so sad. I'm like, well, I've missed 24 years of my life with them. I had, like, a few days in the month of April to know them, but, like, I didn't get to get everything out, because we also got cut off. I was talking to my dad, and he was, at the end, he was like, I just want to hold you and kiss you. And I, like, that broke me. I was like, I want that to, like, I want to feel your hug and your presence. And then he cut off. Like, I think he accidentally hit the end button, and we couldn't get him back. And I was like, okay. And also just, like, whether it's, like, an international adoption or not, I wish my parents would have, like, implemented more, like, Russian culture. Because, like, I don't know anything. And that hurts. And again, Ilson, like, I get, like, I could have said something to them, but it goes back to, like, I don't want them to feel like, oh, so are you not grateful? Which my parents aren't like that. But again, like, that's just in the back of my head. And Russia is so big that, like, my area, I'm like, well, I don't know. Like, I could look it up online, but I'm like, I want to know, like, from them. Yeah, like, if you have an adopted kid, like, reaching into their culture, like, sharing the things that you know, just making them know that, like, again, they may have not, like, not blood related, but, like, they still love you and care for you, and just continue to have that open space for them, to ask questions, to know about their culture, because I think that if I would have known more of that, I think maybe that would have helped some of the loneliness, rather than, like, hey, like, you're from Russia, like, we don't know anything about your birth family, but they loved you, and, like, now you're here. It's like, yeah, I feel like, also just my brain, like, well, I want to know more. Yeah, those lungs fill. You just get, God's got you, and I'm always open to chat. I think that'd be so fun to help someone. Yeah, I think it's just, again, going back to community, finding your people. Like, we're not meant to do this life alone. And I think that's, like, I hear it and I was like, okay, yeah, I know. But it's like, no, like, literally, you're not meant to do it. Like, there are people here to help you, and all you have to do is just ask. And so, yeah.
That's great.
God's gonna do great things, so.
Love it. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you
for being on today.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Being vulnerable and just, telling us your story. I think it was beautiful, honestly. So,
thank you.
Okay.
That was fun.
We'll see y'all next time.
Bye.